Welcome to the Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard, where continuing education meets convenience. Lisa brings therapists practical conversations with expert guests who share tools, techniques, and insights to enrich your practice. Whether you're on a walk, commuting, or cooking dinner, you can earn continuing education contact hours and stay inspired without sitting through endless recorded trainings. Visit lisamustard.com to join the CE membership and keep your professional growth as seamless as your favorite podcast.
Meet Berries, the AI-powered scribe that writes your therapy notes for you. Secure and private with no recording stored and EMR ready with one click. Join over 8,000 clinicians, saving time and staying present in sessions. And right now, save $50 off your first month with code TherapyShow50. Berries, so you can focus on care, not notes.
Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of The Therapy Show. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard, and I'm so excited to welcome Kevin Dahill-Fuchel to the podcast. Kevin, it's so great to have you. Welcome.
Thanks, Lisa. It's a pleasure to be here.
I really am thrilled to learn more about what you do and how you help kids and families. Can you share with our listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, and how you help?
Sure. So I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm currently the executive director of counseling in schools. We're a not-for-profit organization in New York City, serving largely children and families in the city public schools, largely in communities with high levels of an economic need. And really part of our mission is breaking down barriers to access to quality mental health care and really helping schools become emotionally responsive and really environments where children and families can both thrive academically, but really grow emotionally and develop socially in ways that are consistent with their culture, with their environment, with who they are and who they want to be going forward. And it's been something, this organization has been around since 1986. I've been a part of it in one way or another since 1993. So I've seen a lot of how it goes and how it works. And it really is, I think, an exciting place to work and an important type of service to offer in schools.
Yes, absolutely. Can you share what the program looks like? Maybe take us through the different programs that you have for different age levels or different grades.
Sure. The core services that we offer are individual, group, and family counseling services. And the best way that happens is when a school is able to integrate at least one of our therapists into the school on an everyday basis. So they just become a staff member in the school. And clearly there's funding mechanisms that need to be in place. We are entirely grant-based. So there are mental health clinics that come into schools that third-party bill and work through the insurance networks in order to make that happen. We don't do that. We find that that's one of the benefits, I think, to families to not have to navigate, we don't have to be sharing out information beyond the normal confines of confidentiality. So really, we'll be using different techniques depending on the age group. We have therapists that are creative arts therapists that will do a lot of work with the younger students when the less verbal type of communication is beneficial to the development of the child. So certainly a lot of play therapy, but we also find the arts as being a positive part of that. And as we move up the developmental stage, we start to lean into those developmental aspects of children that make sense around when it's peer-led. At times we'll segregate according to gender identity to look at people wanting to explore and understand who they are as they develop and getting older. And then we'll get to a stage even later in the sort of high school grade, heading towards post-secondary. We may even have work around exploration of post-secondary type of work, but it's all centered in how they're progressing emotionally. And we're looking at that. We'll do some pre and post testing, mostly using the strengths and difficulties questionnaire or SDQ, be baselining where their strengths are and looking to build on that as we go forward with them. And also looking significantly at how they develop social skills. So one of the ways that we do that as an organization is, like I said, our core services are those counseling services that you might think of. And then we really have moved also into the after school space or the out of school time space where we're doing enrichment activities and we will have a therapist as a part of those activities. So one of the things that we find is helpful in schools is to have that available because some of the students who really will benefit the most from these out of school time activities sometimes are the students that the typical after-school activity programming staff aren't necessarily able to manage effectively, and they find the need to isolate them or remove them because they're not able to provide what they need to provide to students who are able to manage better socially or emotionally. So when we're able to work with that group in an integrated way, the schools see the real benefit in the day school when those things are happening in the after-school space. And then the last thing that we do is professional development and training of staff on trauma-informed practices, on understanding group dynamics, on understanding where the communication needs to be with families in order to support what you're doing with the children in school during the day. And so those are just some of the training workshops that we do around neurodivergence, a bunch of different things. So those are really the sort of the three pillars, if you would, of our organization. It's day school, after school, and professional development.
And my brain is going off in different directions, thinking of programs that are similar but yet different. So how does this different from like your typical guidance counselor that is also employed by the school?
Yeah, so that's a great question and one that we get frequently.
I just want to take a brief break from this episode and talk about something that's directly connected to the work we do every day as therapists. When a family as polished and media savvy as David Beckham and Victoria Beckham starts making headlines for family tension, it reminds us of something really important. No family is immune to rupture, not wealth, not status, not influence. And while the public speculates, we as therapists know something deeper is happening beneath the surface. Family estrangement isn't just drama. It's grief, it's identity conflict, it's boundary setting, it's stigma, it's silence, and most of us were never formally trained to treat it well. And that's why I'm really excited to share a 1.5 hour continuing education course called 8 Things Every Therapist Needs to Know About Family Estrangement with psychotherapist Carl Melvin. In this NBCC-approved training, you'll learn how estrangement exists on a continuum of contact, the psychological impact of shame and disenfranchised grief, why identity development and autonomy often sit at the center of rupture, and how to apply trauma-informed, perspective-neutral approaches to your work. If clients are navigating no contact, low contact, or reconciliation attempts, this course will give you clarity, structure, and clinical confidence. Enroll now and earn 1.5 continuing education contact hours on your schedule.
I think, at least here in New York City, the typical guidance counselor's training is going to be a little bit short of the clinical part of the engagement with the child and the student. And they're certainly focused on that child's progress within the school in terms of articulating them from grade to grade and moving forward and identifying what some of the obstacles might be in that process. I think their capacity to then really take a student or a family outside of, let's say they have the third grade, they're counseling, or the third through fifth grade, right? That might end up being 300 students. So when something emerges from within that cohort of students that needs more attention or to be drilled down into a little bit deeper, we have that capacity to do that. So we work all the time with the guidance counselors. We want the same things they do in terms of moving a child through the education process successfully. I think we just have a different set of tools and an ability, because of our grant framework, we create the cohort structures that we know will be effective. And I think that's one of the things that guidance counselors wish they had more control over, but they have to go along with what the larger numbers need. We'll bring them in. Sometimes they'll be co-facilitators for us on a group so that they can further accelerate their relationship with students if we're doing small groups with children. But I think it's, they appreciate that we're able to set that up and get the permissions and create the structures that make that group kind of thing work. And they can participate and benefit from learning more about their students, but their students being able to see them in a deeper way as well. So it really is a collaborative experience.
What about family therapy? Are the therapists that are embedded in the schools, are they also working with the families of these kids?
Yeah, I would say it probably, just to call it family therapy is probably going a little too far. We'll have, because the ability of families to come in consistently for what you would want for a structured therapeutic environment set up going forward. But the child is almost always the identified client, if you would. And then the families are these collateral supports around what we're working on with the child. And sometimes there are issues that we'll be able to meet with over some longer period of time, but usually it's relatively brief. But we'll be consistently in communication with the parents. I mentioned one of the things we do is a strengths and difficulties questionnaire. That's a 3-part assessment. So it includes, if it from middle school and above or below, it doesn't include the child himself, but for middle school and above, the child fills out an assessment, a family member fills out an assessment, and a teacher fills out an assessment. So we have 3 perspectives on the strengths and difficulties of that particular individual. So the families are immediately a part of that process and conversation with us. And we'll be continuing to use that assessment as we go forward to continue to get their feedback on what they're seeing, that how their child is demonstrating either strengths or difficulties outside of the school environment.
That's really interesting. And I can understand that if you family therapy, bringing in a, a counselor that's systems trained and can look at systems and understand what might need to happen, but can't bring the whole family in, that would be a lot of work and a lot of just coordination and so much. And you're also probably getting into a different level of clinical treatment too at that point, I'm guessing.
That brings up a point where one of the things we do when we go into a school community is we identify more medical model-based facilities that are in the area and try to establish relationships. So if we see something developing in that way that we know really is more than just some support around better communication or different types of structures that we think can be managed, there may be deeper issues that are going on that we would recognize we really want to have, because an outside facility that's there 12 months a year and every week. We're also, so our strength is our grants, but our challenge is that we're on school schedules. So when school's not open, we're not there. We don't have a separate location. So our location is the school building. So things will occur when schools are not open and families will still need access and support.
Yeah. So can you share a little bit about what some of the issues are that you think that the kids are dealing with nowadays that over the past 10, 15 years have shifted or changed?
Yeah, absolutely. I think of no surprise, I think coming out of COVID, the need for really focused and really almost going back to some basic socialization skill work has come up. A lot more social anxiety in younger students. And it's waning a little bit as we get to be 5 and 6 years out, but it's not gone. And we still see that virtual option being at times an interference in navigating and negotiating in-person, face-to-face conflicts or things. Sometimes they're big conflicts. Sometimes they're just little things that need to be negotiated between people that are not happening. Anxiety, aside from social anxiety, a general sense of anxiety. I think where that comes from in part, and I go back to COVID again, is that prior to COVID, when we would work in schools, for the staff at a school, ours included, as well as the school staff, generally had a relatively speaking solid foundation in their life for the most part. And the students, in the communities that we're working in with that have persistent trauma experiences in those communities and high economic needs, there was this gap. And so there was this sense that there was this almost strong force that was there supporting and available. And you'd have to work to make sure you could make real connections and have good understanding. But there was this kind of solidness there. I think because COVID hit everybody, it really took that, what I call this trauma gap, and shrunk it. So now I think the sense of insecurity from a lot of adults hasn't been relieved. We see a lot more adults going into therapy, all right? A lot more therapists getting employed to be able to do their private practices, and have adults who suddenly are feeling like, hey, I need this. And I think that's translating into schools at times, because I do think that kind of insecurity, and it's subtle, it's not huge, it's subtle, but I do think it trickles down into children who are, particularly the younger children, are super perceptive on whether adults are confident and clear and working through a place of strength, or whether they're a little hesitant, not quite sure, a little bit of a quicker anger trigger, little things are happening that weren't quite like they were. And I think that sets children up a little bit more to be a little bit like, wow, I'm less secure now because the adults around me are less secure, feeling less secure. I think that we've been leaning into more of our professional development services, as well as supporting people who look for therapists and things like that. So I think that is an important need for our institutions that support children to have that group become, again, really focused on if needed to be stabilized so that those children can get that sense of security that I think they need.
Can you share some interventions or things that you do with at different ages and different stages that maybe address the anxiety or social anxiety? What are the therapists doing that's working for the kids?
Yeah, I think some of it is getting involved in small groups. The younger, the smaller the group, but doing some diet work where we have bringing some students in. Certainly with the younger students, I'll go back to when I was a therapist in a school, and some of the play therapy, puppets and dolls are still great for young kids. And you get a lot about them externalizing what it is that they think needs to happen or isn't happening between these two characters that they may have created. And then working to have another person in the room with them and being there to help navigate just some of those little things. And part of it is also, there are some really great curriculum out there. We lean into one that's called 7 Mindsets, which does have some very specific activities and things to walk people through in terms of what you're doing to develop your own social skills and just even identifying things as social skills. And having, again, this sort of intellectualizing gets more prominent as you go up the age level. But really, the idea of skills are something that need to be practiced. Like some people are more talented than others, perhaps naturally, but we all need to practice certain skills and looking at what are the things that are interfering in that. One of the things that New York City did this year, which I think has been very successful, and I think it's happened across the country in a lot of education systems, is start to say that students should not be bringing in or will not be bringing in their internet-enabled devices into school. So cell phones are collected as students come in. There are these pouches that they go in and ways that they're kept secure and all of that. And that's forced more socialization. And so we'll position ourselves in lunchrooms and we'll look for opportunities to create cooperative games. Again, the art therapy is a big part of this too. You can get students working together on a mural, get students working together on a quilting project, different things that just feel like fun or feel like they're engaging, and you get people to start connecting to one another. And then you also, I think it's important, we think a lot about the various cultural groups, and socialization can have a culturally relevant component to it that shifts from group to group. One of the things we did coming out of COVID was train ourselves in something called Familia Adelante, which is a specific curriculum created specifically for, and Dr. Cervantes, who created this out at UC Berkeley, referred to as the Latinx community, to really look at the assimilation process and language between children and parents that need to be developed to have common understandings of what children are experiences versus what parents' goals and desires are for them based on the values that they've come to the country with or that they've held on to for generations. And how do you navigate that? And I think that's helped us when here in New York, we had this major influx of asylum seeking students when the state of Texas was shipping people up to New York. And we had over a 4-month period, we had 60,000 students come into our school system who were from Central and South America largely. And so the need to do that kind of thing and figure out how people were going to get integrated, and lots of people are involved in this effort, not just counseling in schools, but for those schools that we worked in that had that, something like Familia Adelante, 7 Mindsets curriculum, being already in the space of identifying specific social skills to help integrate children together when they were from the same neighborhoods, now doing it with students who come from wildly different life experience, really helped us lean into that even more and see the value and import of having something concrete to lean on to say, we're going to do this today, we're going to take this step, and then watch that develop into people becoming connected and communicating and then socializing effectively.
Y'all are doing some really cool things. It's amazing. And do you offer, I know you have if you guys are just listening, not watching the YouTube video, Kevin has a QR code that you can learn more about the program and about what he does. So we'll also put that link in the show notes. But do you do consultation with other school districts, or do you do anything outside of just working in your domain?
in New York City, we are certainly open to speaking. And I've had other folks who are looking to start similar organizations call and speak to me about it. And I have a team. Obviously, I'm the executive director, but I have a great program team that puts all this together and continues to evolve and do the work with us. And so we're certainly open to that. We're looking to expand the professional development part of the organization to be able to do work in other jurisdictions. Right now, we have the ability. I think our workshops are useful across a lot of school staff personnel. We also thought it was important to get what we do validated in the state of New York to be able to offer continuing education credits for us. And we now can do that for mental health counselors and social workers. New Jersey has reciprocity with New York. A few other states have reciprocity. So as we start to do these things, and we'll bridge out to doing them virtually, there can be opportunities there as well for people to be a part of that dialogue with us. Because I do think being in New York, and there's so many things that can happen so fast at such a large scale, and if you don't figure it out, you're done. So we figured a lot out on the fly, but I do think that there are lessons that we always want to be open to learning from other jurisdictions as well, from other communities. So when we have these opportunities, like I think I mentioned to you earlier, we have a conference coming up this week, Thursday and Friday, the March 5th and 6th, and it's an in-person conference, but there's about 30 different organizations that have sent people to this conference. And we call the conference Collaboration in Action. And part of that is because we really do value and want to hear from, like we'll be offering what we think is important to offer and some techniques, but part of that is really iterative in terms of hearing back from people about when you're applying these things, what have you learned? What other type of technique or strategy would you use in this environment? Or where are the obstacles that you're facing that we think we can understand how to work through with you? So that's all part of what we're trying to develop. It does get hard to stop long enough to think, oh, how can we set this up outside of New York? Because there just seems to always be something happening.
Sure, in different states, different cultural things going on in the States, so much. New York, I'm in South Carolina, and imagining what it must have been like to have an influx of students like that in your school
It was,
system.
it
And
was
it
crazy.
would overwhelm us, and we'd be flat on the ground. Like, we wouldn't know what.
It came close. I mean, it really was like, it's hard to imagine. If you think of really, there's like buses showing up with families, and the city had to respond and did. But it was odd because some of the outlying communities that the governor wanted families to be able to go to wouldn't accept the family. Like it was just getting weird. And then student comes to school and you had to figure out, like, you knew their age, but how much schooling had they had? And some of their experiences of migration were just off the charts in terms of trauma, and being able to be responsive to that. It is one of the things I'm proud of about our organization, that I've always thought of it as, because we're grant based, I've always thought of us, and we have just under 200 employees. And of those employees, it's about 120 or so that are licensed mental health providers. But I do see it as, yes, we're in particular school communities, but in times of crisis, like we're there to be deployed. Like we know how to do this partnering piece. Our therapists are used to understanding how you engage in an environment that you don't fully control and still find your way to that therapeutic engagement and understanding how to move that along a trajectory. And so when these things have happened, whether it was, we had Superstorm Sandy back in 2012, and we had 9/11 back then, and there was the earthquake in Haiti that happened in 2011, hit so many communities across the country, but certainly in New York, huge. And so we've always maintained this sort of ability and willingness to just say, we're here. For an acute scenario, let's go get involved and do what we know how to do and help people get back to a pre-crisis environment. And then we can settle back into our everyday work.
If people listening want to learn more about you or the conference coming up, where should they go?
Our website is counselinginschools with an S, all one word, .org. And then you'll see all the information on the conference there. If you're in on the website too, there's a section of the website called Partners in Healing. That section has a number of activities that are usable for teachers, for parents, that are things that would address some of the things we were talking about here today. There's probably, 40 or 50 sort of downloadable PDF type of things that give a little bit of thought about what someone might do. We developed that during COVID for families to have things to do with their children that would help them along and help parents, but very user-friendly type of thing. So we like to share that out as a resource, free resource for anyone to use and take advantage of.
Anything else that our listeners should know?
No, I just think that like a lot of not-for-profit organizations, we rely on people who want to support organizations, whether they're volunteering, whether they want to donate, whether they have an idea or a thought about a relationship that they think would help the organization. I think as not-for-profits, we like to expand our community no matter where it is. So we hope you'll reach out. There's a newsletter, sign up on our website. You can get, right, we just do once a month so we don't bomb people too much with their emails, but there's all kinds of stuff going on. And if you're interested, we'd love to have you part of our community in one way or another.
Okay, that sounds exciting. I'll put all the links in the show notes for y'all to check out. Kevin, thank you so much for being here. This has just been awesome.
Thank you, Lisa.
Please note that the Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and not a substitute for professional medical or mental health advice. Always consult with your therapist, doctor, or physician before implementing any suggestions from the show. The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard is edited and engineered by Chelsea Weaver. If you're looking to start a podcast or ready to take the editing off of your plate, be sure to visit chelseaweaverpodcasting.com. Well, that wraps up another episode of The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine. Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover all the pod courses and other continuing education offerings. And I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.